What shocking coach is going to get fired next? What's it all mean for two legends? And, oh, yeah, there are actually games to talk about this weekend because it's a wild card weekend. We're getting into all of it and more. I'm Jason Fitz, and it is time for Zero Blitz. All right, if you hang out with me every Sunday night, good. If you don't, shame on you, because we're bringing the Sunday night flavor to Thursday. Frank Schwab, Jason Fitz hanging out with you for Zero Blitz. Basically, this is because we're just besties and we wanted to hang out for another day this week, Frank. And also because, look, I think if there's anything we've learned in today's world, the NFL is going to shock us every day. So I needed my shock buddy to get through all of this. We'll get to the wild card, wild games. But, I'm sitting there. I'm doing some videos for Yahoo. We're doing some wild card preview videos. I'm sitting here. I'm recording everything. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, my phone blows up, and it says, oh, my God, Pete Carroll's out with the Seahawks. So I make some video reaction to that. We're taking care of it. Everything's good. A few minutes later, I'm back to making more wild card videos. Everything's fine. What do you know? Belichick getting fired by the Patriots. I've decided throughout the course of this day, Saban in the middle of all of this too. The 3 times I've sat down and tried to record something about wild card weekend, somebody has gotten fired in the last 24 hours. So I'm here to tell you, my friend, while we're taping this, somebody's getting canned.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been the gym. 3 out of 3. I've gotten a text from Evan Doherty, our video guy, saying, hey, can you cut a video on Mike Vrabel getting fired? I'm like, well, I'm on a treadmill right now, so probably not, but I'll get back to you in a little bit. And then the same thing happened with Carroll and Belichick. You said something at the open that was so... the wildcard games don't even matter this weekend. We're not even talking about the game. We will today. But it's just been overshadowed so much by this crazy coaching carousel. As crazy of a few days as I can remember, just with the big names, just shockingly being let go.
And look, I know everybody's been talking about this, but to me, it just really hits me. I'm going to include Saban in this conversation for a second, even though we're talking NFL. I don't remember the last time I saw generational icons at this level go. And it's really interesting because they aren't replaceable entities. Like Pete Carroll, the personality is not going to be replaced. And Saban at Alabama, I don't think he's going to be replaced. And whatever happens for Belichick next, for all 3 of these places, Alabama, we're including here for the sake of this conversation, but Seattle, New England, I think those fan bases sometimes forget what the rest of the sports world lives in. And you forget when you've got a great one, how difficult it is when you don't. I think the Patriots are learning that at the quarterback position now, but they might be learning that, Frank, at the quarterback position and at the head coaching position, because you feel lost and you rarely get it right.
Yeah, and I always say this. When people complain about trading their quarterback or firing their coach, I always ask a simple question. Okay, who's your next guy? And is that guy better than the one you just got rid of? And in the coaching, the funny thing is, of all these coaching moves, I think Tennessee was the most shocking to me. Maybe Alabama, you didn't see that coming, but it's like, okay, Saban's in his 70s, and so is Carroll, so is Belichick, and most coaches aren't going in their 70s. I mean, if you look at really the history of the NFL especially, it's like George Halas and Marv Levy, and that's about it for guys in their 70s. So I was like, well, okay, it's about that time, whatever. Vrabel just threw me off because these teams, I wonder if they ask themselves, is the next guy going to be better? Maybe there were disagreements between Vrabel and the front office and all that, but is your next coach going to be better than Mike Vrabel? The answer is almost certainly no. The answer in Seattle to, is your next coach going to be better than Pete Carroll, who had an unbelievable 14 years there? The answer is probably no. Obviously, the Patriots aren't going to hire the next greatest coach of all time. Same with Alabama. So you just wonder with these schools and or with this school and these teams, are you ready? Are you ready for what comes next? As you said, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. And you got a better shot at the next Ben McAdoo than you do at the next Pete Carroll. So be careful when you get rid of these guys.
Especially, you mentioned the Titans. I know everybody's talked about it a bunch, but I'll say this. I think you were right coming into the season. We argued about it on Sunday Night Blitz. Guess what? The Titans roster sucks. So the Titans roster sucks. The Titans ownership sucks. The Titans don't have a head coach, and they may or may not have a GM. The Titans are more positioned now to become the worst franchise in the NFL for the next 3 years than they are to become the best. Maybe they'll get it right. Look, this is like you and I both love to gamble. We love to dabble a little bit, right? There's a difference between going up.
Me?
Yeah, I mean,
Me?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a difference between going up to the roulette table and putting an asinine amount of money on, whatever, 31 31 black. I like to bet 31 because I love Halloween, right? Like there's a difference between putting an asinine amount of money on 31 black when, hey, if I lose it, it's just a bad day, versus if I lose it, I lose my house. And I think a lot of these teams forget that they're in the situation where they're going to lose their house. Like the Patriots right now have a bad roster, have no quarterback, and have no head coach. And you're just going to presume, if you end up with Gerard Mayo being the guy on the sideline, you're going to presume that that guy can turn in and replace Belichick? Like, if we're going to buy that Belichick, the coach, has been overachieving with the roster Belichick, the GM, got, then, man, I'm looking at New England's in complete rebuild mode. It could be years. It could be decades. It could be generations before they're even competitive again.
Right. By the way, 19 red, Robin Yount, but whatever. We'll figure that out when we're on Super Bowl week in Vegas. But you look at it, yes, and the problem with these teams, too, is not just you're replacing a legend. It's the guy who's replacing a legend is going to be under so much pressure. Whoever Seattle gets, whether it's Jared Mayo or Mike Vrabel in New England, living up, or Dan Lanning in Alabama, whatever they settle on, that the pressure on that guy is so intense that it's almost impossible to succeed. And let's go back to Tennessee, just because that was the most shocking one to me. As weird as that sounds, with all the big names that have gone down, Tennessee was still the most shocking to me because I believe in Mike Vrabel as a top 10 head coach. And I think if you take a step back and say, why did we lose this season? It's not because of Mike Vrabel. He kept them competitive. They were in most games. But we have this like SEC mentality of, well, at losing season, got to get rid of the coach. And it just doesn't always work out that great. And now what is Tennessee selling? They're selling a roster that, unless you love Will Levis, maybe, I don't know, what else do you have to sell? Tajay Sharp? Like, it's a roster that you're going to go to the top candidates and they're going to be like, no, I got better options. Ben Johnson might be like, I'm better off staying in Detroit as the offensive coordinator. Like, I don't think these teams think this through to the point of, how are we going to sell this job to the next candidate? The Patriots are a good example. Now, the Patriots, I think, are a little bit different because they have this tree, right? They could go get a Jared Mayo, or Mike Vrabel obviously has connections there. They're just not cold going into the market here. They have enough former Patriots and all that they could find somebody. But a team like Tennessee, a team even like Seattle, you're going into this market and really, what are you selling? Are you selling something great? Seattle's a little bit better than Tennessee. Seattle's a lot better than Tennessee, I'll say. But they're still trying to sell a job that might not be that easy, especially when you're taking over for a legend. There's a lot of pressure on the guy who's next. And boy, I know this isn't a college show, but if I'm Dan Lanning, I'm thinking twice. I'm thinking, man, I got a good thing here at Oregon. Do I want to be the guy to replace Nick Saban? You go 11-1. They're going to want to fire you. Like, that's just the way it is. Like that, there's no way around that, Fitz. And there's these teams and that school have a lot to think about as they come up here trying to replace pretty much irreplaceable guys.
And now think about it, as reports continue to circulate that depending on what happens over the course of this weekend, we could see other jobs opening. A lot of speculation around Philadelphia, a lot of speculation about the Cowboys. If you're Harbaugh, who's sitting here possibly, I still think Harbaugh is more likely to stay in Michigan. Nobody else agrees with me.
No, man, I agree with you.
Okay,
I
look
think,
at that. We're the show.
Real quick, I'll give you my 15-second rant. We are going to be sitting here in the year 2038, and it's going to be like, oh my God, for the 15th straight year, Jim Harbaugh is going to leave for the NFL, and it's going to be this coaching cycle where we're all. Jim Harbaugh is an egomaniac who likes the attention, and his agent likes putting this out there to get Jim Harbaugh raises. And I will not be convinced otherwise until he takes an NFL job.
The top money in the NFL is around $15 million a year for a coach. So if he gets that $15 million on a 6-year deal, that's $90 million. If he, according to all the things I heard in Houston, the offers on the table for him at Michigan right now are anywhere from 10 years, anywhere from 125 to 150 million. That's fully guaranteed. Why would he leave 30 or 40 million dollars on the table? I'm just, but that being aside, if he wants to take a job, now all of a sudden, I mean, he's got a laundry list of places he could go. And if you're Belichick, I think you got to step back right now and be really patient, because if we do believe that Philadelphia or Dallas, like if Belichick's real objective is to try and hit the all-time win mark and he's 15 wins short, he's got a much better shot at that Dallas or Philadelphia than he ever would, let's say, taking over the Titans. He's got a better shot at that even with the Falcons than he does with the Raiders, for example. So he's got to be really patient and selective. I think this is going to be a slow-moving cycle to figure out how it all works out.
Interesting. I think Belichick's number one goal here, and I'm assuming he's talking to the media, I think right now as we're taping this, and he might just be like, I'm going to go ride my boat. I'm not coaching anymore. But I think he wants to coach because he's chasing Don Shula. And I don't blame. I don't say this in a bad way. I'd want that record too. Like he's, I believe, 14 wins behind Shula. Maybe it's 15. I can't remember the exact number. But in that, so he wants to go to a team that you're able to win 15 games in the next 2 seasons. He doesn't want to be coached at 3-4 years chasing this, right? Like, so a team like the Chargers, we're all going to link to them, but the Chargers ownership is cheap. So I don't know if they're exactly going to get in that mix. Another team you didn't mention, but there was some rumors. ESPN's Adam Schefter put it out there that, hey, maybe Mike Tomlin steps away. That'd be a Steelers job. Like that's a pretty well set up job. I mean, what, like we have so many options on the table. And Bill Belichick, look, if you are a team that wants to win right now, you're not worried about 5 years. You're worried about 2 years, which you should be in the NFL because that's all you get anymore. Why wouldn't you want Bill Belichick? But even teams with good head coaches right now should be like, man, Bill Belichick, the GOAT? Really? We can get him? He's a free agent right now. So I think it's going to be fascinating. And I think he's the first domino to fall because a team like absolutely the Falcons. Why wouldn't the Falcons want Bill Belichick? Why wouldn't the Chargers want Bill Belichick? He can still coach. I always will maintain that. He almost proved himself as a coach the last few years, not really this year, but because of the horrible personnel decisions he made, he was giving us bad rosters. Don't forget, this team made the playoffs with Mac Jones at quarterback a couple of years ago, right? Like this isn't, I still think X's and O's wise, Bill Belichick's at the top of his game. You just don't want to give him GM control. And he kind of said this week, hey, I'm open to not having GM control. I think that's huge for his next team. Because if you're the Falcons, you're like, do we want to give him personnel control? It seems like he's in a place where he's like, I don't need it anymore. Just let me coach.
Yeah, and it should be noted, several reports today said that they've been talking since Monday. I think we have to understand that Robert Kraft is looking at the long game and Bill Belichick is looking at the short game. He wants to win 15 games right now. He wants to continue to be aggressive building. I also think that roster is bad. So there is a philosophical, do we start the full reset? And maybe Belichick didn't want a full reset because that means less wins as he goes through it. We'll break down more of it.
Real quick, Fitz, do you think these teams did the right thing? I don't think Tennessee did the right thing, but Seattle and New England, do you think they did the right thing?
No, and no. I think all the way across the board, no, and no.
Okay.
I think that Vrabel should stay at Tennessee. I think that Pete Carroll's energy, you can't sit here a month ago and show me all those clips and be like, oh my God, look at his energy. Tell me he still wants to coach. And then tell me you think you get like, do we know Dan Quinn's going to be better there? I don't. And then, if you're New England, I'm looking at it saying if he's open to not having GM control, then I think you run it back and you continue because whoever comes in next is doomed. I think that roster's trash and whoever comes in next is absolutely doomed. What's going to be interesting is that it also, let's couple it all together. Belichick and Josh McDaniels are probably going to end up somewhere. Arthur Smith and Mike Vrabel are going to end up somewhere. And we're going to have all of these head coaching sort of shifts go all across the landscape. Mike Lombardi is going to join us later in the show. I'll get Lombardi's thoughts on all of this from a front office perspective. But we are here, my friend, to preview actual games that are happening. So I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. One, we're going to give you a big question, a big thought, a big statement, something big from each of the games, of course. And then we'll each make a prediction at the end. Stone, our producer extraordinaire, will keep track of those predictions. This is going to be a challenge. It is officially a bet. The bet will be paid off on Sunday night on Blitz when we play. Although, I should say it could take a little longer than that because there is a Monday game. So, you never know. Could take longer. Depends on how this thing goes. But there is a bet to be determined. It will have massive consequence. Earlier, face tattoos were on the line. I don't know. I can neither confirm nor deny. Face tattoos may be on the line. All right. So let's get one big question we've got from each game. And we start with the Saturday games. We're going to go in order of the games as we see them. As Cleveland, who has struggled on the road, goes to Houston, who's very good at home. You have Joe Flacco, who's seen more football than anybody can imagine, taking on the rookie sensation, C.J. Stroud. So what's a big question you think will get answered in this game?
I think is Joe Flacco up to taking this team to a Super Bowl? I mean, I keep going back and forth on this, Fitz, because part of my brain is saying there's no way a 38-year-old who was bad last year with the Jets, who was unsigned from the end of last season to mid-November, who got on a Southwest flight, right, to go sign with the Browns practice squad. There's no way that guy is going to a Super Bowl. And then yet, when I watch the Browns, he looks great. Like in this season where we've had a tough time finding any quarterback to play well, Joe Flacco's been balling, like legitimately balling. Like, I mean, when they played the Texans week 16, he's just getting Amari Cooper going for 265 yards, a Browns franchise record. And you're like, man, I guess Joe Flacco's legit. Like, but I still, in the back of my mind, I don't know if you feel this way too, I think there's still bad Joe Flacco game coming where we're sitting here on Sunday Night Blitz saying, well, yeah, we should have seen that coming where Flacco throws 3 interceptions and they lose. It might be this week. I don't know. But I also say, why do I think that way? Joe Flacco hasn't played in a manner that leads me to believe that is turning into a pumpkin this week. So I just think the big question here is this Joe Flacco thing for real? Like, I don't know. What do you think? Where do you stand on this? Because I keep going back and forth.
We're in 2024, and you're basically saying the big question is Joe Flacco elite, which was, for anyone that doesn't remember, it was the sports talk conversation for 5 years. All right. But you're right. And also, I think a little bit of fairness here. He has turned the ball over, right? Like, we talked about that on Sunday Night Blitz, where it's like, yeah, he's getting away with it. I think you're right in that there's a lot on Flacco in this game. Amari Cooper coming back and being healthy is going to be a big part of it. He obviously went off the last time these two teams played. But I don't think there's a ton of margin for error against this Texans team, because where it gets interesting to me, like the big question in my mind is CJ Stroud really him? With capital H, as the kids like to say.
I'll answer that right now, man. Yes. That dude is awesome. Like,
but you know what we do?
I'm sold.
Like, you know what we do? If there's any struggle in the playoffs, we're like, I haven't seen it in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know.
Every time there's some guys like, they haven't seen it in the playoffs. Every single time that jerk comes
through. People still do that with Dak Prescott. Like, Dak Prescott, what does Dak Prescott need to do? He's pretty much top 3 MVP guy this year.
If Lamar has even a slightly off game, people will be like, this is why he can't pick up. So, like, there is this moment of CJ Stroud has been battling the but all year. People want to kind of put a but around it because nobody can give it context. This was the greatest rookie season at a quarterback position we've ever seen, right?
I agree.
And if he goes in against this defense, which is elite, and defense wins championships, this is, I believe, the best defense in all the playoffs. I would put my money on that particular unit as being the best unit in the playoffs. The Browns defense is the reason I believe in them. If he goes in and slices and dices that defense, especially knowing he is going to get pressure, then it answers every question you could possibly have. And now the AFC landscape at the quarterback position changes wildly. Like, it's going to suddenly be, oh yeah, we got Mahomes, we got Burrow, and we got CJ Stroud. Like, he vaults into that conversation if he balls out in this game.
I just one of my, I guess, recent punching bags. Like, if CJ Stroud, if you go in and you throw for 280 and you beat this team, why is he behind Justin Herbert in any pecking order? Right? Like, I mean, come on, let's go. Like CJ Stroud to me is just, I was convinced earlier in the season, but then, I hate this too. You're right. I totally hate this narrative of like, you can't win in the playoffs, which is so ridiculous. But we will hear it. You're right. And people will forget that last week, when he played at Indianapolis, that was a playoff game. But like, everything about that was a playoff game. Like the intensity, the crowd, everything. And CJ Stroud balled out like he always does. Nothing phases this guy. He's as good as I've ever seen at this age. Like, he is just unbelievable. But yes, if he struggles, you'll hear the same old thing of, you didn't win in the playoffs, so it doesn't matter. The Lamar thing, the Dak thing. So we'll see. But yes.
And I think, by the way, Frank, I think he's going to destroy it. I think he is going to have this is a pick'em game to me. Like, I'm staying on the sidelines as a dabbler on this one. I'm staying on the sidelines on it. It's a hard one for me.
I love that code word now. You're a dabbler now. Okay. Wow.
There's a moment for me where I was like, I don't like the risk reward proposition here because I think this is a really hard game to pick. Obviously, we have to make picks, but here's what I think. The one thing I am sure of, CJ Stroud's going to have a big game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I am really at that spot where when, me, we make this analogy all the time on Sunday Night Blitz, but if you're putting them on shelves of liquor, I think CJ Stroud has proven he's actually top shelf. And I rarely say that. I'm usually the guy that says, give me 3 years on a quarterback. I do not need 3 years. CJ Stroud is on the same shelf as the elite of the AFC. He's going to prove that on Saturday. He's going to have a big win. But I still think maybe Cleveland wins this game. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going back and forth. You know what? I think part of me just doesn't want to believe in Flacco, and that's the reason I want to pick. Plus, defense wins champion. No, I'm taking Houston. Maybe it's because I was just at NRG. I'm taking Houston. The Texans find a way to win this game, I think. What do you think?
I flipped, actually, my pick. Early in the week, I thought Cleveland's defense is the one thing I trust. Flacco's played so well. Why would I pick against Flacco right now? He's playing well. And then you really start to dig in. And one thing I go back to is the Browns on the road are not the same team. And the Texans at home are not the same team. It's not the Dallas Cowboys level of home road splits with these guys, but Houston played really, really well at home this year. And CJ Stroud in particular played well at home this year. The Browns have not, I mean, if you look at this run by Flacco, they won 4 games with him as starting quarterback. 3 of them were at home. One of them was at Houston without Stroud, obviously. They started Case Keenum in that game. So I just don't think this Cleveland team travels as well as we're kind of forgetting that, right? Because we're just caught up enamored with their defensive Flacco, that this was not a great road team all year, where Houston was a different team at home. And I do believe in Stroud. I just think he has a big game. I just, at the end of the day, I started the week with the Browns, but I've flipped. I'm with you. I think Houston wins this game just because they're a really, really good home team. I think they're going to be really fired up in Houston. And I just think Stroud is that dude. I think he is going to prove once again. And I don't really think there's that many doubters left, and there shouldn't be any doubters. But if there are, I think they're going to come out of this game saying, "Yeah, he's already a superstar." What else can we say about this guy?
I got Browns 20 or Houston 27, Browns 21. What do you think? So we do some scores just in case we tie on everything.
Sure. I'll go a little more low scoring. 21-17.
Okay. All right. So, and again, we'll see how these play out on Sunday Night Blitz. All right, so let's go to the Saturday night game. And Saturday night game is the 6-seeded Dolphins at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, everybody's yelling about this game. And we want to talk about what everybody's yelling about, obviously, because they're yelling about where this game is going to be broadcast. But everybody's yelling about the wrong thing. Frank?
You got Peacock, Fitz? Are you ready? Are you ready?
No,
you got your,
so I don't have to pay Peacock. I mean, you think I'm paying for Peacock? No, I got the free Peacock. And you don't get it on the free Peacock. You got to get the paid Peacock. And now I know everybody's mad about that. But before we get to that, can I pull up a soapbox and can I just yell for a second?
Please. I'm ready.
Look at the schedule over the weekend, right? You got a game in Dallas. That game in Dallas, that's in a dome. You got a game in Detroit. That's in a dome. You got a game in Tampa Bay. That's in warm weather. You got a game in Houston. That's in a dome. Why in the hell does the NFL always find a way to put a game at Arrowhead at night on a Saturday night? Like, by the way, this game is going to be freezing cold. And you knew that. And you put it in after the sun goes down. Like, look, even if you want to buy that it's not that much warmer at noon, it's at least warmer. What are we doing? And then everybody says, well, it's about the ratings. They put the game where they need to put the game for the ratings. Like hell they do. They buried this game on Peacock. So all they did was screw the Dolphins by putting this game at night at Arrowhead. This is an absolute injustice to Miami when they made this schedule. They needed to put this game, no matter who was playing in Arrowhead, it needed to go during the daytime, so at least the visiting team had a little bit of a chance. Like, I understand you earn home field advantage. You don't earn this much home field advantage. And the fact that Mahomes has never even played a road playoff game, and now yet again, he gets a home playoff game at night against a warm weather team. The NFL has just gone out and they have slapped the faces of the Dolphins and Dolphins fans. I am outraged that we're talking about Peacock instead of talking about the NFL and their obvious bias in this game placement.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. A lot. By the way, my favorite conspiracy theory of the week, and I laugh at a lot of conspiracy theories. I get frustrated some, but this one I just love, is that the NFL put this game on Peacock, so all the Swifties will have to pay for Peacock. And I think that's the most ridiculous, funny thing I've ever heard. I love it. I will say this. We all love the cold weather games. We romanticize them, right? Like, oh, the Ice Bowl and the Tuck Rule. I'm sorry, Fitz.
Too soon.
That up
Too soon.
Yeah, I know.
Too soon.
But the fact is, most bad weather games suck. They just do. Like, I want to see Tua and Patrick Mahomes play in a dome, and it's 45-42 with Tua having the ball in the last 2 minutes. But we're not going to get that. We're going to get these Chiefs receivers who they can't catch a ball when it's 70 degrees outside, trying to catch it when it's -6. Like, I ain't going to go too well. I just, cold weather games are not great, especially the extreme cold weather or snow games. Or we saw the rain game, the Steelers and the Ravens in week 18. They're usually sloppy games where neither team can function that well. We're going to have one in Buffalo too, with 50-mile-an-hour winds, it sounds like. So, yes, the fact that the NFL is trying to make this even worse by putting it on at night, I guess, it's going to be cold either way in Kansas City on Saturday. But yes, you're right. Putting it at night, it doesn't do anybody any favors. I will say this, though. I think we get too caught up with, oh, Miami's coming into Kansas City. They're the team at the big disadvantage. When you get to -5 or whatever it's going to be, both teams are miserable. Like, I don't care that Kansas City lives in this. They're not functioning well in this environment. And again, their receivers are not good. You think they're going to catch a ball well when it's this cold, this frigid? I think this neutralizes Patrick Mahomes because, again, he's great. I think the world of Patrick Mahomes. You're playing a game where the football is going to be a rock. It is going to be an ice cube. basically. That doesn't mean that he's going to be able to throw the ball well. I know Miami's at a disadvantage, obviously. They're living on South Beach, right? And they have to go to whatever, 20 below zero wind chill. But I think this is both teams get affected by this. I think it's going to be I wish this game was this would be an awesome wild card game if it was in normal conditions. It's not going to be. It's going to be uglier than it should be. And in 10 years, we're going to be like, hey, remember that great Dolphins? No, it's just going to be a game that really doesn't live up to the expectation.
All right, so give me a pick on this one.
I think I'm going to shock you here. I'm going to go Miami. I'm going Miami. I've kind of come around to the fact that this game, you neutralize Patrick Mahomes. You take away some of his strength anyway. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is throwing for 350. If he does, hats off. Okay. I think that getting Waddle and Mostert back for the Dolphins, which it sounds like they will, they've been practicing limited fashion. I think we've overlooked how big of a loss that was for the Dolphins. We talked about them losing to the Bills last week without mentioning that they had a guy who was at one point tied for the NFL lead in touchdowns in Mostert, and Waddle, who changes that entire offense because it can't be all, we're just going to take Tyreek out of the game. When these two teams played in Germany, they played pretty equally. One Tyreek fumble was returned for a touchdown by the Chiefs. That really turned that game. But these two teams are pretty equal. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that the Dolphins go there and they're going to be the team that's frozen on the sideline while the Chiefs are kicking back like, hey, we live in this. No, it's going to be miserable for both teams. And I think that evens the playing field as much as anything. I think this Dolphins team is good. I know that they have their issues against winning teams, all that kind of stuff. That's baked into the point spread already at 4.5. I think the Dolphins, let's put it this way. I think the Dolphins cover for sure. And I'm going to just go out on a limb and say they upset the Chiefs this week.
So we agree on yet another game. I had the Dolphins winning this game 17-14. And wow, I think it's low scoring because of everything you've talked about. I do believe the weather impacts both sides. And also, there's no sync and rhythm to this offense. And, so what you're going to have is everybody just being slower than usual, but it doesn't impact. It's not like cold weather. As much as we talk about, cold makes it tough to do your job. It certainly does. It's tough for everybody. So if Tyreek is already faster than their secondary when they start the game, he's still going to be faster than their secondary when they are both slowed down. Now, I realize no team is more equipped to slow down at least the concept of the Dolphins, and they already have a win. The Chiefs already have a win over the Dolphins. I don't trust this Chiefs offense at all. I no longer trust the Chiefs offense to be able to produce points. And I do in this weather. I wonder if they're just going to be able to calm down and start running the football. And if I got to trust one team to run over the other, I actually trust, with Mostert presumably coming back, I trust the Dolphins to be able to run the football here. So I think even though they've tried to sabotage the game by putting it night, also, Frank, you like to watch out and about anyway. So do you just go into a sports bar for this one? Like, what are we going to be at B-Dubs for this one?
No. Just at home for this one. It's a standalone. A standalone's I'm on my couch. It's fine. By the way, 16-14. So just so I have my final score on the record there. Okay. Yes, I will be warm because that cold is coming to Kansas City. I don't know if you realize this, but we're kind of in the same area of the country here in Colorado. So we are going to have, I think it's -12 on Saturday, I heard.
God. But you do know that
you don't deal with that, man. You don't deal with this.
The thing for me is,
I was born in Milwaukee. I'm not built for this. I don't like this.
If I'm going to spend $5 for the game, I'd rather just go to a bar and sit with a bunch of people. Now, I realize the bar's going to cost me more than $5. I'm just saying that, I'm going to be at the local watering hole down the road. There's a place called the Bar on Cedar, and it is everything you think a dive bar is going to be. Smells bad. I'm pretty sure that John Taffer would yell at them about the food conditions in the back. And the nachos taste great because of the dirt that's on them. I don't know why. And
why not?
It's I'm going to be like one of those stragglers in there that refuses to pay for the game on Peacock. All right, let's go to the Sunday game. Speaking of cold, at least they did this one at a better time to try and help. But yeah, Pittsburgh goes to Buffalo in the Arctic conditions. Could end up being the coldest game in playoff history, they're saying. Depends on the weather and the wind chill and where it goes down on this one. So Pittsburgh, with already, I'm not sure I love the quarterback situation there, goes into Buffalo where they've looked like a shell of themselves. I'm taking the Bills in this, but I guess my big question in this game is, will the Bills finally put on tape a team we can trust in the playoffs? because getting the number 2 seed because they got there is fine. But let's not get it twisted. They didn't look good in several of their wins late in the year. Could have lost that, should have lost that Chargers game. Like, I'm not waiting for wins. I'm waiting for the Bills to actually come out and play a competent game, especially offensively, top to bottom. I think Josh Allen's been a work of art. That's fine. But the team overall has absolutely no balance and no idea what they're doing and no offensive identity. So, like, this is a chance to get that against the Steelers team that I think is beatable and did not really belong in the playoffs.
And I don't think this is the game for a number of reasons. A, the Bills seem to make things harder on themselves than it should be. Like you talked about the Chargers game. They really struggled to put away the Patriots in week 17. They came really close to losing to the Dolphins in week 18. They needed that 96-yard punt return really to turn around that game. It's one of those teams that's always going to play down to its competition, I think. And this is, as weird as it sounds for a playoff game, this is playing down to your competition. The Steelers, like you said, probably the worst of the 14 playoff teams. And kudos to them for getting in and rallying with Mason Rudolph and all that, but they're not great. This is not a great Steelers team. If you're going to cross one team off, it's this one. But the weather, man, you spend enough time listening to NFL players and coaches, and as we do, talking to them, they'll say cold is not enjoyable. Rain, whatever, snow we could play through. Massive winds, no, it just changes the game. It makes it unplayable. And from what you hear, if forecasts are right, and no offense to the meteorologists out there, sometimes they're wrong.
Full offense.
But we're hearing, 25 to 30 mile an hour winds. It could gust up to 50 something. That's going to not make this an NFL football game. Like, this is just going to be that game a couple years ago on Monday night when the Patriots ran like 52 or 55 plays or whatever it was. That's going to be this game. And honestly, I think stylistically, that plays into the Steelers' hands better. Who would you rather have if you're going to take away the passing game? Mason Rudolph or Josh Allen? Like, if I'm the Steelers, I'm like, good, Josh Allen. I know he's got a cannon arm, but you ain't dropping him back 40 times if it wins for 50 miles an hour. Like, that'd be stupid. So you kind of take that away from the Bills a little bit. You neutralize that strength they have, like we talked about with Mahomes. I think the Steelers, even without TJ Watt, which is huge loss, obviously, I think they can keep this close. I don't think they win, but it's going to be one of those games where we're just at the end of it, when we're talking about it on Sunday Night Blitz, we're going to be like, yeah, okay, well, the Bills won, I guess. That's going to be this time of game where it's just going to be ugly. They're going to play down to the Steelers. The weather's going to affect both teams. I really don't. I don't have a lot of faith in the Bills just blowing out the Steelers in this game.
I think it's a blowout. My final score on this one, 31-13. I'm taking 31-13 as this. Mason will make a couple of mistakes, couple of turnovers. We could see a defensive touchdown or two in this game, special teams touchdown. It just feels like one of those games that's going to get a little out of control. I'm with you. Josh Allen's inability to throw the ball because of the wind plays a factor, but also Josh Allen's just going to run all over him. He's going to run around, and there's not going to be any answer for that. So I think it gets out of control. This is the closest we've had to a disagreement so far, so it counts as a disagreement in our bet because you think it's at least close. I think it is not. Like, this is one of the rare ones where I would say I think the last I saw Buffalo's favored by 10.5, and I took Buffalo with the points. So I think it gets out of control. So
I'll go the other way, 20-14. I just think this is going to be one of those games where we're going to, like 5 minutes after the game, we're going to be like, do I remember one play from that game? No, not really. Like, it's just going to be I think this is probably the worst of the 6 playoff games this weekend, just because of the weather. I think the weather is just going to make this game really, really and hopefully the meteorologists are wrong, but I just think if we're trusting the weather and that it's going to be 30, 40, 50 mile an hour winds, I just think this game is going to be awful.
All right, so that's a home field advantage Buffalo has in the weather. Nobody has a bigger home field advantage than the Cowboys that never lose there. Jordan Love and the Packers sneak into the playoffs where they will be taking on the Cowboys in Dallas. So this is an opportunity for Jordan Love. I mean, all eyes are going to be on Jordan Love because of the way we've analyzed his play this year. You know what I think of him. We talked about it last week. People didn't agree with me. I think he's sort of a mid-quarterback that's going to prove to be an okay player, not a great one. But this is a chance for him to make a big old statement. The thing of it is, like, I think if we were evaluating the Cowboys without the star on their helmet, people would be putting them in the Super Bowl conversation much more than they are, because everybody wants to put a doubt around the brand of Dallas. They want to turn this into, but they can't do it in the playoffs. And I say this all the time. I don't care about any of that. This is a different team this year than they've been in the past. Different play caller with McCarthy taking that segment of the game over. They've had a different aura around them. They are more explosive as an offense. Like, I think we are oversimplifying by saying, yeah, the Cowboys are going to cowboy. I don't believe in that logic. I think the Dallas Cowboys are about to get a dominant win, and remind us all that being at home is going to give them a real opportunity. Like, they are a Super Bowl caliber team. I think they can challenge San Francisco. I think they get an easy first round win.
If Dallas loses, we need to block off like 4 hours on Sunday night just to talk about all of the permeations of what you're going to burn it all down. Jerry Jones needs to sell the team, and Mike McCarthy needs to be taken out of the country. And Dak Prescott never, like, it's just going to be such a freak out in Dallas if they lose this game, because they have, like you said, the path in front of them is very simple. You win 2 games at home where you were 8-0 this year. Sorry, Lions fans. They did win all 8. You go to the NFC Championship game where you're probably playing the 49ers, but it's not guaranteed. Like, we always like to think that, of course, the 49ers are going to win their divisional round game. Well, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. But even then, you're still further than you've been in the playoffs since 1995. So if they lose before the NFC Championship game this year, it is just going to be the worst offseason for Dallas that you've ever seen. But I don't think that's happening. I honestly didn't realize this until yesterday, I believe. The Cowboys were the top scoring team in the NFL this year. I didn't realize they took that title from the Dolphins, 509 points. I knew they were having obviously an excellent offensive season. Credit to Mike McCarthy, who, by the way, why do we always talk about Mike McCarthy's job security? Like, this guy was, they won 12 games this year. I believe it was 12. They win the NFC East. They're the number 2 seed. And we're talking about, like, oh, maybe Belichick takes them over. Like, what? Mike McCarthy's done a pretty good job. I don't know what his image problem is, because everybody thinks he's the worst coach in the league, where the results just don't play that out.
Well,
so,
and don't we do the same thing with Jerry? Like, everybody presumes that Jerry Jones is going to have this quick trigger finger. And where's the proof of that? How many years in a row was it like
one coach in like 11 years?
It's like every year was, well, Jason Garrett's gone this year. Every stinking. And we're doing the same thing with McCarthy. Like, Jerry Jones has actually proven to be a fairly patient owner, letting processes develop. And by the way, I should remind everybody that it was, oh, they're never going to get Zeke signed. They did. Oh, the Cowboys don't even want Dak long term. Yeah, they did. They wanted him for even longer, and they took care of the mega contract. Like, every time the media, and myself included, we're all part of it, comes out here and gives stupid hot takes on the Cowboys, I'm reminded that we're not actually looking at the evidence. We're just saying what we think based on some 90s version of it. Like, hey, guess what, guys? Don't judge me by who I was in the 90s. I'm not going to judge Jerry Jones by who he was in the 90s or either. Like, I just think we're having the wrong Cowboys conversation repeatedly.
Right, like Jerry Jones got rid of Jimmy Johnson. That was 30 years ago. Like, think of where you were 30 years ago. Like, Jerry doesn't operate that way anymore. Now, could he fire Mike McCarthy if they lose? I guess, like, it's possible, but it's like they're being like Jerry was asked this week in a serious tone, like, is Mike McCarthy going to be back as your head coach? Like, what are we doing? Like, no other coach in the playoffs right now is answering those questions, and especially not a 2 seed. But with the Cowboys, it just gets ridiculous. The conversation is always 10% more ridiculous than the rest of the NFL.
So I'm going Cowboys 30, Green Bay 17 in a game that's closer than that. Like, it's 23-17, trash touchdown at the end makes it 30-17. Close game, but goes 30-17. What do you got for the score?
I think, we're on the same page here. I think 35-14. This Packers defense, all Packers fans will tell you what they think about Joe Barry, their defensive coordinator. They look bad sometimes this year. They finished strong. Like, the game against the Bears was really, really good in Week 18. But let's not forget, Baker Mayfield put up a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. Bryce Young had by far the best game of his rookie year against the Packers. Tommy DeVito even looked like a decent player against this Packers defense. What is a team that scored 509 points in a regular season going to do to this defense? I don't have a lot of faith in the Packers being able to slow the Cowboys down. I think CeeDee Lamb goes off. I think Dak goes off. It might even, 35 might be selling the Cowboys short in this game. I can see them getting into the 40s. The Packers are on house money here. Just making the playoffs was a pretty good year for them. Jordan Love, his first year, all that kind of stuff. I just keep thinking back to that team I saw lose to the Giants, that team I saw lose at home to the Buccaneers. I don't buy that the Packers are this great team that can go in and challenge the Cowboys in Dallas, where they're just a totally different team.
All right, so the next game up on the list is the game where adrenaline is going to be through the roof, maybe in ways we've never seen. The Rams taking on the Lions, the first ever home Lions game at Ford Field, but also the return of Matt Stafford, which we all know the emotion behind. Like, remember the way Lions fans were cheering on Stafford for the Rams in the Super Bowl? Like, there is a true connection between the city and the quarterback of the Rams. This game is wildly interesting to me, Frank, because we've talked about this a lot, but man, look at the way the Rams are built. They got two great wide receivers that they can rely on, a workhorse running back and a pinpoint accurate quarterback. That's the way Sean McVay wins football games, right? Like, their defense has been good enough through this process, right? They're taking on a Lions team that's certainly explosive, but like, I don't even know what to make of a Rams team that's so far ahead of schedule and so well coached that I'm sitting there saying, my God, like, how do you bet against Sean McVay in a playoff game, considering the bend there element for him, the bend there element for his quarterback, and then the weapons and the way they've gotten usage out of? Like, this game is really tough for me to pick because of the brand of McVay and what I believe in him.
Yeah, I agree with you. Quick question, because I was going on Detroit radio yesterday, and they're having a little discussion. And it struck me because I don't know the right answer. You're a Lions fan. You have your Stafford jersey, right? Like, that's perfectly justifiable. He was a great player there for 10 plus years. Can you wear your Stafford Lions jersey to the game on Sunday if you're a Lions fan?
No, you cannot. No, you
right?
cannot
like, you
at
can't.
all.
Like,
No, you can't wear it.
You got to leave that one at home.
You can't even pull it out of the closet. Like, you're not allowed to look at. You can't even look at the Stafford jersey that day. That's bad juju to put into the world. Like, there is no spot where you can, like, the gods of karma, the football gods looking down and seeing you. Like, you can't even nod approvingly at that jersey before you go to the stadium thinking, oh man, I hope Stafford. No, you can't put that into the universe.
You can't.
Yeah, no,
you can't. But it really, to me, spoke to the conflicted feelings of they love Stafford, and they should. He was a warrior for them for many years, but not Sunday. They want to get this win. This to me, our editor Al Toby had me rank the 6 wildcard games based on watchability, and this was an easy number 1 for me. I think this is the game of the weekend because of everything you talked about of the Rams and McVay being so far ahead of schedule and being really the surprise team in the NFL this season. I've said this before. McVay would be my NFL Coach of the Year vote. I think he did the best job. And nothing against Kevin Stefanski or DeMeco Ryans or anything like that. I just think McVay took this roster and elevated it to 10 wins. Like, this roster had no business winning 10 games. But you got to get rid of your preconceived notions. I do anyway, of this Rams team where I thought, they're thin here, they're thin there. This is a really good football team. They're just, you watch them. They almost beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Okay. Like they came this close to beating the Ravens in Baltimore. This is a really, really good football team. And I just, Kyron Williams is rested. Cooper Kupp is rested. Matthew Stafford's rested. Puka's awesome. The one thing that I keep coming back to with this Lions team is, in weeks 16 and 18, they played the Vikings, and Nick Mullins had more than 800 yards passing against them. Nick Mullins, okay? And in the game between that, Dak Prescott, I believe, had 326. This Lions secondary, if Aiden Hutchinson doesn't get home, they're just in trouble. I mean, that's just, they don't even have a great front where it's like multiple guys, right? It's basically all Aiden Hutchinson blow up their offense. We don't have a lot else. I think Matthew Stafford could go for, is 400 too much to say? Like, this could be that kind of game for Stafford just because this Lions defense is really, really vulnerable on the back end.
And that's part of why I'm actually picking the Rams to pull the upset here, because the other part of it, you mentioned the trends we've seen over the last month. Jared Goff has been reckless with the football several times, right? We've gone into Sunday Night Blitz several times saying, what the hell's wrong? Like, what is he throwing? Like, it's not even just okay, well, that was one of those plays, a weird pick. He's had some throws that you just look at and you're saying, what are you doing, dude? And in this game, in this moment, I don't know, man. It's hard for me not to see the mistakes that Goff has made and the lack of mistakes from the Rams offense and not feel like that's the difference maker here. It takes 1 or 2 big mistakes when your defense can't hold up. It takes 1 turnover, and all of a sudden a touchdown game becomes a 2-touchdown game, and it changes the way you do everything at this point. So I don't think either team can necessarily stop either team. I just think that there'll be a mistake in here for Goff, and that mistake leads to a Rams opportunity that changes the flow of the game. And much like the national championship game we saw the other night, a close game can become an ugly game with 1 or 2 bad plays. I trust Stafford far more to not make those bad plays than Goff. So I actually have the Rams pulling off the upset in a high-scoring, let's say, 34-28 sort of game.
Yeah, I wish we disagreed more. That's just a problem for us, isn't it? Like, because I'm going with the Rams too. And I hate to pick against the Lions. I love the story. I love the setting on Sunday night at Ford Field is going to be awesome. That is going to be one cranked up crowd. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I don't root against the Lions by any means, just because I like when fan bases of long suffering teams win. Like it's great, it's awesome. But I just don't like this Lions team right now. And a guy we haven't even mentioned yet is Sam Laporta. And it sounds weird to say this about a rookie tight end, but his absence, and I assume he's going to be out with that knee injury, his absence just has a ripple effect on this Lions offense. Like Amon-Ra's awesome. He's one of the top, 5 to 10 receivers in football, but you need something else too. You need a counterpunch. And without Laporta, maybe Gibbs coming out of the backfield, but what really is your number 2 option in a passing game? It's been Laporta all season. He's been awesome. If he misses this game, like I think we all assume he will with the knee injury, that just takes away from this Lions offense. In a game we both think is going to be a shootout, I think it's going to be 34-31 is the number I had in my head. I'll stick with that. A little different than yours, not very much, but I got to go with the Rams here just because, again, I just kind of throw up my hands at some point and say, I expected them to be terrible this season. They're really, really good. They have an unbelievable head coach with a rested team, and I just think that this matchup is really bad for the Detroit Lions.
So that takes us to Monday night, the game between two teams that I sat there in Week 18 and said, my God, these two teams are going to the playoffs? Like, Tampa Bay had everything on the line and looked like trash against Carolina. Philly had plenty on the line, they thought, when they played and looked like trash against the Giants. So we get a trash Monday Night Football matchup between two teams that I'm just not sure. Philly is at Tampa Bay, and, you listen to some of the rumor mongers, and they'll tell you that Philly loses this game, there could be problems for Sirianni. So I'll ask you this. On Tuesday, is Nick Sirianni still the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Boy, if they win, of course, yeah. I think we're not going to fire him.
That'd be awesome. Win? That's just a prediction.
That'd be so awesome, Philly. Like we beat the Buccaneers, but it's kind of ugly. We're just going to fire Nick Sirianni. Brian Johnson can coach the divisional round. If they lose to the Bucs, I think he's their coach. But man, I can't believe we're having this conversation. It's unbelievable what's happened to a 10-1 team that made a Super Bowl last year. By the way, they legitimately, over the last 6 weeks, when they went 1-5, they've looked like one of the 5 worst teams in football. It sounds crazy, but they've lost to bad teams. They've gotten blown out in other games. And in Week 18, they got blown out by a bad team. The Giants, it seemed like the Giants took their foot off the gas to be nice. Like, that's how bad the Eagles lost in that game. Like, it seemed like one of those, if Jack Pardee was their head coach, for a little college football reference from 1990 for you, it could have been like Giants 56-3. Like, that's how bad the Eagles were in that game. And I don't know, like, what has happened to this Eagles team? And I think chemistry is a big issue with them, just because, you hear some things leaking out. There's been a couple stories that there's been some discontent in the locker room, and you can kind of see that when they play. This team looks like one that's like, can we just be done with this? I don't want to be around these guys no more. Let's just be done. I don't know. It's so bad, but I do want to say this too, because we haven't even talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that much. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you take away garbage time in Week 17 against the Saints, they were down 20-0 in that game, scored a couple touchdowns. And the rest of the other final 2 weeks of the season, Tampa Bay did not score 1 touchdown. They had a chance to wrap up the NFC South last week with a game against a 2-win Panthers team, and they did not score a touchdown the entire game. They win 9-0. It is an ugly, ugly look for the Buccaneers right now. I just think Mayfield is so banged up that they can't even really function on offense right now. So it's like you said, this is a bad football game. It's interesting because of the various subplots, and it should be close and all that, but it's really not a good Monday Night Football game for us.
Yeah, I think the back end of Philly's defense is a liability, and their inability to get home this year has created matchup issues for them they're not prepared to handle. So as a result, even though you're right, Tampa Bay hasn't been good enough at home, I think they will be. I think Tampa Bay wins this football game. And that's staggering for me to say. So I've got Tampa Bay beating the Eagles in what I think is an ugly couple of mistakes. It's just going to take a couple of mistakes to get there. So I'm thinking 24-17. It feels like that sort of a game. A couple of mistakes will be the difference. Baker will play well enough. He'll put up some yards. He'll get a couple of touchdowns, and they'll be able to take advantage of the fact that Philly's defense is just falling apart, and Philly's going to be asking a bunch of questions on Tuesday morning. I got Tampa in this game. Who you got?
We finally disagree. Oh! I don't know why I'm doing this. But I'm picking the Eagles. you look at these two teams and the way the Buccaneers are playing, and you say, how can I pick against this Eagles team? And I know they've been so bad. Like, you lost to Arizona at home after you were leading by like 14 points at halftime, and all the terrible performances they've had. But I still can't get myself to pick a Buccaneers team that has not scored a meaningful touchdown in 2 weeks against the Eagles. I'm going 21-17. I don't love it because this Eagles team, they might have already packed it in. Like, there might be tea times on Tuesday morning for all we know for some of these Eagles guys. Like, it is not good, but this Buccaneers team limped to the finish. They really did. They were very lucky they caught Carolina in week 18, who you could beat with your D- game, which they really played. I think the Eagles find a way. I don't feel great about it though, Fitz. I was with you on the Bucs until I just kind of had a come to Jesus moment late in the week and said, I can't pick this Buccaneers team over the Eagles.
All right, so let's have a little bit of fun. We're going to take the two big games that we both predict as sort of a wide margin for the Buffalo win and for the Dallas win. Different varieties of it, but a wide-ish margin. So let's take those two games off the table. Those are the two, I think, ones that we agree on that have the chance to be the biggest spread. So taking those two off the table, give me one of your picks that you think is a lock. So now that only leaves you Cleveland, Houston, Miami, Kansas City, Detroit, and the Rams, or Philly and Tampa Bay. Games that we all think are going to be close. So give me one that you are putting the Schwab lockdown on.
Man, this is tough. I can't believe I'm doing this with a 3-point underdog, but I'll go with the Rams. I just think that this matchup for Detroit it's just bad. And you can see, after the game, Matthew Stafford on the field with, I don't know who the sideline report, I don't know which network has that game, but saying, yeah, I love Detroit, but wanted to come back here and get a win. Yeah, whatever. Like, I just think this is a bad matchup for the Lions. So I'll go with the Rams as my lock. This is a tough one though, man. Who you got?
Well, the rule is I can't duplicate your lock, so I got to look somewhere else. I'm going to take
would you take it, Raz? You would have taken it?
I think so, but I'm going to take the Dolphins over the Chiefs is my lock. I don't trust this Chiefs offense at all. So even in the frigid cold, even in the frozen Arrowhead, the frozen tundra of Arrowhead, I will take that one. What I can be sure of. Wait, are you going to Buffalo Wild Wings on Sunday to watch all the games?
No Buffalo Wild Wings for a while. I might go Saturday night after the games and have, some of their $4 pitchers or whatever they have.
I was going to suggest
I'm just chilling on my couch, man. Like, I'm just hanging out. I was
just going to say we could do like a mango habanero wing bet. Like take the spiciest wing from Buffalo Wild Wings, whatever the spiciest one is. I like the mango habanero, but take the spiciest one. You got to bring them to the taping and eat them while we do Sunday night show. But hot ones comes to Sunday night Blitz. That's
oh my God. Oh yeah. I'll be passed out 20 minutes into the show. That's not a bad suggestion. We'll see. We'll have to work through this bet before Sunday night, man.
Here's what we'll do. We will give Stone, the producer extraordinaire, the power to make the entire bet for us. He'll figure out what the bet's going to be. No tattoos, nothing permanent. That's the only rule.
That's unfair because you have how many tattoos? 40?
I mean, it feels like it. I'm smothered and covered like Waffle House hash browns and tattoos. So
I'm like the last person on Earth in 2024 that has no tattoos. None, zero.
I just heard as a challenge while we're in Vegas. I mean, maybe a Zero Blitz gets a little tat chat going. Okay, I got to continue the show. I got to go talk to Mike Lombardi. But in the meantime, come back on Sunday to see how all of this plays out. You can obviously follow Frank on social media, and he'll be back with us on Sunday night. Frank, thanks for sitting in with me, brother. Let's see how these picks go.
It was great. And, we could get past the coaching stuff and watch some football. Look, we got 13 games left. You got to enjoy them all. I can't wait. Can't wait for this weekend, man. It's going to be fun.
All right, it's time for our chat with Michael Lombardi. And, Michael, I look forward to these every week. But come on, we had drama after drama after drama. I got to get your thoughts. Let's start with Belichick because I think it's important to remind everybody, you know him. You've obviously been around him for a long time. No longer the coach of the Patriots. In your mind, what do you think's next for Bill?
Well, I think if you watch the press conference today, he still wants to coach. And it's going to be interesting. The Patriot way will go to another city. The program that he runs will still be the program that he runs, and it'll be successful when he goes there. So for me, I think his enthusiasm, his energy, his football acumen is still at the highest level. So this divorce, if you will, was done really well. It was amicable. Both sides had different positions. Both sides saw different things, and they came to the understanding that what is most important is what is in the future. Because as Bill said today, the reality of it is that he's always going to be part of the fabric of the team. He's always a Patriot. And I think this press conference today was symbolic of paying tribute to that.
Let me push back and at least ask your thought on one thing, because I've been doing these phone interviews today with different radio stations. Everybody's asking about Bill. And every fan base keeps talking to me about complete control. Like there's this concept when he walks in the building, he wants control of everything. From what you can see, from what you know, do you think wherever he goes, that will be part of what he's asking for?
Well, look, I was with him in Cleveland. And one of the downfalls in Cleveland was because you had an owner that was involved. And what Bill's asking for is nothing to do with power. It has everything to do with building a culture. And if the owner wants to be on the radio or wants to talk or wants to kind of undermine the culture by talking to the players and listening to the players, that's not going to work. That's just not going to work. He won't go there. The culture can't stay there. But in terms of having people help pick players, I think there's no question that Bill's always been collaborative in nature. But I don't think people truly understand the level of intellect that Belichick has. Do you really think that there's certain people that are going to be able to walk in a room and say, Bill, I know better than you, and we're going to do this? I think that's a little hard to believe, right? Like, I've been around the game for 35 years. I've watched Bill Walsh. I've watched Al Davis. I've been in draft rooms with Al Davis and Bill Walsh and Bill Belichick. And Bill's as good as any of them. And I know the NFL very well, and I know very few people will challenge people that have great knowledge. So this idea that, well, he can't have all the power is a little bit of a naive statement by fans that don't understand how operations run. Belichick is the best listener I've ever been around. Coach Walsh was too. You know, he would listen. So it's really about listening to the right information and then making the perfect decision.
So if it's about listening, I think this is the tough follow-up to that, right? Like I heard Orlovsky today reference on Get Up that they haven't gotten to a second contract on a first, second, or third round pick in several years, right? Like the draft has been part of where they've gone wrong. If he's collaborative, if everything's great, wherever he goes is going to be fine. Why did it go wrong in the end in New England?
Well, I think, obviously when you don't draft, when you miss on some of those picks, you're also picking in the bottom of the round. I don't think Dan's ever made a draft pick last time I checked. So it's easy to criticize the picks. Look at some of those. Who did they miss on around it? You could certainly say that. They won 6 Super Bowls. Does it matter that you got Malcolm Butler as a college free agent or you drafted him in the second round? Would you be happier if you drafted him in the second than a college? I think people go through those draft charts that really have nothing to do. If you hit with a 5th round pick, and you didn't hit with your second, does that make it a bad draft? I think they have to get better, and I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you. But they had a good team. I mean, 3 years ago, they were in the playoffs. And so, they're rebuilding the team. I think they have a better team than people think they do. But this narrative that he can't draft, I got it. Gronkowski just showed up. He just decided to become a Patriot. That's right. I forgot that. That's right. And Shaq Mason, he wandered on the campus and he just got there as a 4th round. That's wonderful how that happens. I think people truly like Big Dan. I don't think they understand how the draft works or how team building works.
So if you were Robert Kraft, would you have gone through this separation with Belichick?
No, but Robert Kraft has every right to do it. Because what happens, Fitz, is there's moments where the owner wants his team back. They want their team back. Pat Bowlen did this when he fired Dan Reeves. He also, when he did it with Mike Shanahan, sometimes the owner wants their team back. They want to have more say in their team. And I think Kraft made the point today where he said, look, I didn't want to take away Bill's authority because that wasn't going to work. So it was either get rid of Bill and settle this or keep going. And they decided they want their team back. It's natural. It happens all the time. It happened in '64 when Art Modell got rid of the greatest coach of all time and Paul Brown. This has been going on in the league forever. The coach gets so successful, the owner wants their team back. That's one of the reasons Mike Vrabel's not in Tennessee. The owner wanted the team back.
That's the exact example I was going to get you to, because if you read all the reporting, we've all been reading it for Vrabel, which I'm still kind of surprised happened. It seems like Amy Adams Strunk just kind of wanted to come in and recalibrate everything, put her stamp on it, and start over. The hard part for me, Michael, is like I'm looking at somebody like Vrabel and saying wins above replacement, to use the baseball stat. Like, do the Titans really believe somebody's going to come in and be better than Vrabel? Because Vrabel seems like a hot commodity on the open market, and I'm not sure the Titans are a hot commodity job. You know what I mean? So it feels like sometimes change for the sake of change is the worst thing you can do to me.
Well, yeah, because here's the reality. You can't replace Belichick. You can't replace Pete Carroll. You can't replace Mike Vrabel because you don't even understand half the things they do. Right? You don't even understand half the things they do. You don't understand half the mistakes that are avoided. So there lies the problem. I mean, Rand Carthon's going to go hire a coach who's not even half as good as him. Maybe he'll become as good as Vrabel, but they're going to soon find out that what I found out during my career. And I was naive like some of these people are and thinking that there's a lot of good coaches around. They're not. They're hard to find. You get a great coach, you stick with them, especially a coach who has an appetite for success. One of the things about Belichick, it's always the next game, the next win, the next player, the next week, the next day. He's never resting on his laurels. He has an insatiable appetite to be great, and he loves the work. So where are you going? Same thing with Vrabel. And so I think, to me, so many personnel people, they are very, very believe that they can, every place is a great coach. And there's not many of them.
It's funny. I'll always go back to, I tweeted this out earlier today. One of the most invaluable things I gained in my years working at the 4-Letter Network was the opportunity to work with athletes all the time. And one thing that, if you just ask questions and listen, especially off camera, it's amazing how real you'll get when it comes to the responses, and how many athletes reminded me that pride is the downfall of men when it comes to athletes, but also pride is the downfall of coaches. Pride is the downfall of front office people. Pride is the downfall. And as you talk right now, it makes me, it resonates that point from top to bottom. Like whether it's the owner wanting control, whether it's the player, whether it's the GM wanting control, whether it's the coach wanting control, it seems like at some level, these things are always just power, whether we're talking about the Roman Empire or whether we're talking about the football business. It feels like power is the thing that continually kills culture all over the place.
Envy, as Charlie Munger once said, is the killer of all. And it's really envy. They're envious of the successes being driven towards one area. Look, Mike Vrabel, I never thought Mike Vrabel would leave because I thought that Amy Adams would realize that she could replace Rand Carthon. She can't replace Mike Vrabel. Now, obviously, Rand Carthon convinced her that he can. And her press release indicating that Will Levis could be the quarterback of their future tells you all you need to know. I have a book on my shelf behind me, Paul Zimmerman's book on football that he wrote about, the Thinking Man's Guide to Football. And in one of the pages in that book, he quotes Bill Walsh, and I quoted in my first book, Gridiron Genius, where he talks about Walsh sets the stage of typically what happens in the NFL. And this is in the early 60s. This is in the 60s, 70s. The GM watches the game with the owner. They have drinks. They go out to dinner. And the GM's constantly telling the owner how good the players are and how the coaches are not doing things. Meanwhile, the coach is watching tape 12 hours a night, and he doesn't leave the office until 2 a.m. But everything's the coach's fault. So there's that imbalance. And Walsh told me at a very young age, Michael, don't become a scout, because he believed all scouts were bad coaches who were bad coaches who then start telling good coaches what to do. And so this is what happens in the sport when the personnel is driven by you think you're better than you really are talent-wise. You've got real issues. Tennessee's not a talented team. They haven't drafted well in years. Like, they have some good players, but they're not a talented team. And for Mike to be able to win as many games as he did last year is remarkable. And so I think they're going to find this out.
So as we talk about structure and roles, one of the interesting things about Pete Carroll, which I think most of us were pretty surprised by, is that he made it clear he wanted to continue coaching, and it sounds like they've found some advisor role for him. And like, Michael, I'll just use like my past life. I can't imagine walking onto a tour bus one day and having somebody say, okay, we got a new fiddle player. All right. So, but you're going to stand on the side of the stage and you just watch him play and then, just advise us along the way. It would take like one show before I was ripping the fiddle out of somebody's hands. Like, I can't imagine Pete Carroll staying in the building, not as a coach when he wants to coach, that there's anything constructive that comes from that, from the player, or from the coach, I should say, or from the team. It just feels like a disaster waiting to happen in communication.
Well, I mean, that's the PR of what he's going to do. The reality of is they're going to pay him, and they could call him on the phone. I don't think he's got office hours. I don't think he's going to pick up the fiddle. Now, if they hire Dan Quinn, which a lot of people think is what they'll do, then I'm sure he'll be an advisor. But what they're basically saying is he's going to be an ambassador to their program. And also, if you want to hire Pete, all you have to do is call him up and say, hey, we're interested in talking to Pete for a head coaching job, and they'll grant you permission. They're paying him is really what that whole press release and that whole thing is about. They fired him, but they didn't fire him. They're going to pay him. And they want him part of the fabric of the company. And I think that's really a nice thing that they did.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to make you an advisor in this moment, and I'm the agent for all of these. I'm the agent for Vrabel. And I call you up and I say, Michael Lombardi, Mike Vrabel is now on the free market. What do you think the best job is for my guy?
See, everybody starts with, well, you got to go where there's a quarterback. Well, Andy Reid went to Kansas City. There wasn't a quarterback when he got there. You get the quarterback. You find the quarterback. What you can't find is an owner who's going to allow you to run your program. I think that's the fundamental question. Will Washington allow you to run the program, or are you going to have to work for a president of a team? Okay. Will the Chargers allow you to run your program? Will the Raiders allow you, or are the Raiders, or is the players going to go tell the owner if they're unhappy with you? So it all comes down to, how do you judge the owners? How do you judge the infrastructure of the company? And can it work? Why did Jim Harbaugh leave San Francisco? For the same reasons why Mike Vrabel just got fired. He was having conflict with Trent Baalke. The 49ers front office at that time, the owner, said, we're going to take the side of Baalke. We'll find another Jim Harbaugh. They let him go. He left, went to Michigan. They hired Jim Tomsula. Then they hired Chip Kelly. Then they said, you know what? We're going to fire Baalke and we're going to start this thing all over again. See, this is what happens, Fitz. People don't understand how hard it is. They think the game is not run through the personnel guy's chair. The game is run through the head coach's chair. And if you don't allow that to happen, then that's not a good job.
So if Belichick called you today and said, buddy, come back, we're going over to a team, you can pick it. Which team do you think would be best suited to handle Belichick, the culture he wants to bring in?
Well, I think I think there's a lot of unknown there, right? Because I think there's a lot of teams that we're not talking about that might fire their coach to hire Bill. Like, you're telling me if you're Woody Johnson, Fitz, and you got a 33% winning percentage coach, and you got a chance at a generational moment where you got Harbaugh, Vrabel, Belichick, even Dan Quinn. I mean, you got guys that have been very successful in the open market. You're going to stay pat with your 33% winning percentage coach?
No,
see, the list list, I don't know the list to answer your question. The list is simply this, is what coaches do you think are going to get fired if they don't win next year? That's the other list.
God, what we know is that the drama is not going to go anywhere. And one thing I can assure you is that Michael Lombardi's always got you covered. He hosts the Lombardi Line, which airs on VSiN, that's VSIN, weekdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, weekends, 10 a.m. Eastern, as well as the GM Shuffle podcast. You can check out all of Michael's NFL takes at VSiN.com, VSIN.com. I'll be back Sunday night with Frank for Sunday Night Blitz. You guys know that. Follow me on social media at Jason Fitz. Follow Stone, too, our producer doing God's work behind the glass, at SJ Rose Show. Leave us that 5-star review. Rate, subscribe, tell your friends, family, enemies, everybody to hang out with us every single week. Michael, thanks for hanging out with us, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll be back next Thursday with more Zero Blitz.